clicker the.
Here. That's your presentation.
Yeah. Hello. Hello, everyone.
So this one?
Is that okay?
That should be okay, yeah. Which presentation is it?
This one.
There we go.
Okay.
You're over there.
Yeah. So,
Touch on the camera, huh?
should we start? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar series. Today, we're going to be talking about hydrogen towards zero-emission fleet in the Faroe Islands. Those webinar series are brought to you by the Huge Project. For those of us that have followed us through social media, Eventbrite, and other channels, you know what we're doing and we know how we're doing it. But for those of us that are new to our family community, I'll just give you a quick introduction into the project, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. So the HUGE project stands for the Hydrogen Utilization and Green Energy Project. It is funded by the Northern Periphery and Arctic Program, which is a cooperation between 9 program partner countries, and it's ERDF funding. We have 8 partners from 6 different countries. My name is Desislava, and I'm the project coordinator representing the Environmental Research Institute, which is part of North Highland College, which in itself is part of the University of the Highlands and Islands. And it's 13 universities across the Highlands of Scotland. Our other partners from Scotland, we have the Highland Council. From Ireland, we have NUIG and Aran Island Energy Cooperative. From Northern Ireland, we have Action Renewables. From Iceland, we have Icelandic New Energy. From Finland, we have LUT. And we have, of course, from the Faroe Islands, the University of Faroe Islands, which is hosting us today. Just a little bit of the project background. So we gathered together almost 3 years ago. Now we are at the end of our project with 8 months left to finish and deliver all of our outputs. What brought us all together basically is that all of our regions have an abundance of renewable energy resources and capacity. However, unfortunately, the grid infrastructure is not underdeveloped, and it's not developed enough to be able to take all the capacity that the resources at our doorstep can produce and can give to the communities that live in those regions. So our main aim is to overcome those barriers and the grid infrastructure problems by looking at how hydrogen can be utilized as an energy vector across different industries, across transport, heat, maritime. And so I'll just give you a quick overview and background of the project without going into too much details, because you'll learn a bit more later in the seminar today. We have 3 technical work packages. The first one is the techno-economic assessment of hydrogen operations. The second one is the hydrogen utilization business modeling. And the third one, which collects all of them and actually disseminates everything that we're doing, is the hydrogen knowledge and technology transfer. So our seminars are part of and are product of this work package. All of those things, so that you don't have to remember all that many words. We of course have cool acronyms for them. So we have the T2, the hub model, and the HTT platform, which all together go into the huge output to service, or for short, the hot service. I have added on because after the seminar we will disseminate all the presentations and everything will be recorded. So I've just put on a little bit of more additional information of what each tool is about, but as they will present their work at the end of the seminar, you'll hear it from them, and I'm not going to go into details. I just have it here for people who want to look later into that. And what we aim to do with the hot service, the end product, is we want to develop business case scenarios in each of our regions. And I'll just give you a quick overview of what we're looking into each region. So in the Aran Islands, we're looking into hydrogen vessels, while in Iceland, we're looking in hydrogen trucks. So you can see that it's quite a varied applications that we're looking into the different regions. In Northern Ireland, we're going to be looking into hydrogen bus fleet. And in Scotland, we're looking into how to put hydrogen into buildings and mostly into council buildings and into public-owned buildings. In Finland, we're looking into synthetic fuels, and why we are today is in Faroe Islands, we're looking into maritime hydrogen, and this is what we will explore further in the seminar through the different presentations and speakers we have gathered here. The project aims, basically, if they have to be summarized, this is the summary of it, we aim to provide communities with energy security, and we do this by providing them the tools, which will be the T2 and the hub model. And then we aim to increase the awareness of hydrogen as an option into different uses, be it transport, be it housing, or be it industry. And we hope that through building those business case scenarios, we'll be able to increase the readiness of governments and local actors, public-private, to invest into hydrogen solutions. And the third aim of the project is to facilitate decision-making decision-making process by building capacity into infrastructure providers and mostly raising awareness, which is why we have those seminars and why we have those excellent speakers online and here with us. So this is for me. This is just a basic summary of what we're doing, and we'll have questions. So we'll have presentations following. And we would like to ask our attendees to use slido.com, and this is the password you have to use. So #616369. I think it will be on YouTube as well. So don't worry if you forget it. You get it somewhere. It will be posted somewhere. So please do put your questions in there. If you have questions for specific presenters, please do let us know, so that at the end of each presentation, we'll take your questions and presenters will try to answer to the best of their capabilities. And this is it for me. So now our Faroese partner, Sigurd, will take on from here, present the other presenters and lead the discussion from now on. So thank you very much.
Yes, hello, and welcome to this online webinar of the huge group. My name is Sigurd Jakobstovo, and I'm representing the University of the Faroe Islands in this project. I'm also working at the Faroese Environment Agency. As you know, we have 4 presenters here from the Faroe Islands, and 1 external presenter situated in the UK. So the first presenter is Jon Jordan. He is currently Secretary of the North Sea Hydrogen Ports and Maritime Community, which is shortened NS HyMAP, and it began as an information exchange in 2020, and this member decided to form a membership-based association in January 2021. He has also been heading the Secretariat for the hydrogen fuel cells in European regions, and he established the European Policy Solutions in 2001 and has worked for a wide variety of clients in the UK and European Union. He has also been heading the European Policy Central Regional Council from 1989 to 1993, so he's been in this area for a long time. And we are very pleased to have him here, and I will give the word to Jon. Thank you. We are just waiting to unmute him. Hello again, and sorry for this not being able to get the connection to the UK. So we'll move on to the next speaker, which is Kári Mortensen. Kári is the head of department at the energy department at the Faroese Environment Agency, and he has a background as in biochemistry and mathematics from the University of Copenhagen, and he has been performing marine and environmental research and education at high school and university. And since 2007, he has been working at the energy area on the Faroe Islands. So, floor is yours, Kári.
Can you hear me? No? Skal det bare køre? Jeg kan blow det her out. Hope det rykker så. Here. Yeah, hello, good day. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and tell you about the energy situation here in Faroe Islands. And it's limited what I can say in 15 minutes, but I'll try. Okay. So I'm not going to speak much about hydrogen or solution of that kind. That this is kind of background for everything. I'm going to talk about background for everything here in Faroe Islands, of course. Yeah, energy figures. I've chosen to take figures from 2014 to 2020. The development here in the islands. Wow. Okay. And here you can see the. I can use this, huh? It must be cool here. Attention one there. Here. This one. This is the gross energy use in Faroe Islands. It is approximately, in 2014, it was a little below 3,000 gigawatt hours a year. This is for everything: oil, electricity, incineration of everything. And it is 3,000 gigawatt hours. We used to say it because we won't have a large figure. It is 3 terawatt hours. And that's been growing for the 6 years up to almost 4 terawatt hours now in 2020. And the small one here, below here, this is total electricity. Approximately 10% of the total energy is coming through electricity. And if we look at the electricity production, it is also been growing approximately at the same rate as the gross energy, from 300 gigawatt hours in 2014 and now to 400 gigawatt hours in 2020. But you can see also that this is the production from wind. It has been constant in all this period because we have not put any new wind turbines up in this period. And also the hydro, we don't build new hydro. So the total hydro plus wind, this is the total renewable share of the electricity, is constant in this period. And it has gone down from almost 50% in 2014 to 40% or less in 2020. And of course, the reason is we don't build new hydro, new wind, but the growth in the economy in Faroe Islands and in the use of everything is quite big. It is 40% for total usage and 33% for total electricity. And the reasons are of course complex, but we have a population growth quite substantially. We've been from I don't know 48,000 in 2014, and now we have 55,000. And the development in the fisheries are also really going well. And it is the pelagic fisheries, and it is the salmon farming, the two biggest, and both of them are very good at using electric solutions for their energy. and you can see that in the total electricity, but also in the total use. And one last figure here is that we are only 4% of the total energy is coming from renewable energy right now. And if we look a little bit closer to that, you can see here the energy flow in Faroe Islands in 2020, approximately 5 terawatt hours. And I'm not going into details with this. There are many figures here, but look at the red one. That is predominant. That is the sectors that are using oil. And of course, the marine sector here at 140,000 tons of oil per year, and the onshore oil is 160,000 tons. Altogether, 300,000 tons of oil in 2020. And what we are trying to do better and to decarbonize our usage is on land. In the first time, we see that on the sea, in the maritime sector, it's very difficult to electrify. But on land, we have the equipment, the tools to do things. And these 4 sectors are the one we are focusing on. It is electricity production, where we are using heavy fuel today. I think in 2021, 60,000 tons. It's a lot of heavy fuel. And in the space heating also, heating of the houses and buildings, small 50,000 tons. And in the industry, also 30,000 tons maybe. And in transport on land, 35,000 tons. This is the focus we have. And I'm going to continue. And we have an energy policy, and we have been doing scenarios on these policies. And one very optimistic scenario for 2030 is that we want to be 100% electric in these 4 sectors I told you about. We should have electric cars, heat pumps, and 100% electric production of electricity, and also 100% electricity in or zero oil in the industry on land. So this will be the picture if we look at this scenario. We start with 300,000 tons of oil and end up in 2030 with 100,000 tons. And this is, of course, what is back for the marine part of the energy. But all the part on land is gone. The oil is gone here. It is very optimistic. And of course, if the oil is gone, something else must come instead. And this is power from renewables. And it's predominantly wind we think about. And we have to put a lot of wind up to get this. But if you cannot see it here, but the energy content of all that we lose here is very much more than the energy content in what we are going to put up. And the reason for that is, of course, energy efficiency. It is, we're going from producing electricity from heavy fuel, where we have a really only 40% efficiency, to produce it from wind, solar. It is almost 100% efficiency. And the heating of houses, it is with oil burners, it is 80% efficient, but with heat pumps we get 3 or 4 times as much as we put in. Electricity is very efficient. And also electric cars, of course, are 3 times more efficient than usual cars with diesel and gasoline. So we need to go from 400 gigawatt hours electricity in 2020 up to approximately 10,000 gigawatt hours in 2030. 2.5 times as much energy, electric energy. And let me talk a little bit before I go to the production, to show you that we are not starting today. We have been on the court for several years, and it's not going fast. I say here it needs more speed, but things are happening, and the people of Faroe Islands are aware of this change that has to come. And I take one example here is ground source heat pumps that has been the growth has been growing. It's come more and more of heat pumps, and now in 2000 we have almost 1,000 ground source heat pumps in Faroe Islands, and this is a lot in our figures, but it's not a lot compared to the 18,000 buildings we have in Faroe Islands, where we still have 15,000 of them have oil burners. So it's a long way to go. The 3,000 here, it is ground source heat pumps, it is air to water heat pumps, and it's in Tórshavn it's an district heating system with 1,200 houses maybe inside. So we need to speed up here. And for the transport on land, it's not looking so good, but it is looking good in the last years. Electric cars are coming in faster and faster. But here in now we have approximately 500 electric cars out of 30,000, so there is place for improvement. But I think that it is like in other places, the electric cars, they are really moving in right now. So let me go to the production and show you this picture from the Faroese electricity company's homepage. Or this shows it's quite complex, really. We have a very small country, but it's a quite complex electricity picture we have here. And we have production from several sources. It is, of course, oil, the thermic, the heavy fuel plants, and hydro, wind. And we have a biogas plant, and then on an experimental basis we have solar, and we have tidal hydro also. Tidal in Sound here in Vestmanna. We're not going to talk about these things. And as I showed you, we are 60% from oil. But things, even if nothing happened for the last 6 years, things are going to happen now. And what we will see next year here and the year to come, in the next 2 years, is really a big change. We are going to put up 3 wind parks here in Faroe Islands, 2 here up with Tórshavn, altogether 61 megawatt of wind, and 1 up here in the northern part of Eysturoy. And the total capacity, the production from these 3 sites it is 240 gigawatt hours per year. And this is almost, it is actually the same amount that the heavy fuel plants are producing today. Then you could say, okay, we have got 100% electricity now. But no, we have not, because this is intermittent energy, and it is really, really challenging to get this energy into the system and to use it. And this is kind of what we are around here, gathering around. This is the challenge of using intermittent energy in the renewable energy system. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I think that in the first time we will see maybe half of this energy or a little bit more we are going to use. The rest is going out again with the wind. And what is going out is, of course, high quality electric energy that we have paid for but cannot use. So we are in it's a positive problem, I would say. And what we need in the first time is storage. Everybody talks about storage. Here in Faroe Islands we have the opportunity to store energy in water up in the mountains. Pumped hydro storage it's called. And you know the principle. The principle is that you pump water from a lower storage to a higher storage when the wind is good and you have surplus of wind energy. And when there's no wind, you can let it run down again and produce hydro. And here in Vestmanna, this picture is from Vestmanna, where we are going to make this pumped hydro plant. This is an existing dam, but it's not so high as this. This is when it is been built out. The dam height will be higher than it is today. And the plans are that it should be up and going in 3 to 4 years from now, 25, 26. And when it comes up, it will, and we are calculating that the capacity of it will be in 2030, when we really have all this 240 megawatt of wind energy in the system. This plant here, pumped hydro plant, can produce around 60 gigawatt hours a year, and will really be a necessary for having this much wind in the system. And even if it will be there, and we also have to speed up with electrification of everything in society, we cannot avoid still to have a lot of surplus energy. And this is an analysis we did 1 year ago of the amount of energy, still intermittent energy or curtailment we are going to lose if we, even if we have this pumped hydro storage, and even if we have 100% electric transport on land and 100% heating with electric energy, and the industry on land also is 100% electric. Still we cannot cope with all the energy. There will be a lot surplus. And this is of course a challenge to find out what can we use this energy for. We shall be smart grid solutions. We can have maritime processes, or maritime energy is of course something we must look at, and here we can think of making energy, or making this energy, making it available for ships maybe, and this is hydrogen is absolutely a fine opportunity in this sector. If I could say here, the growth here, and it is of course most available energy in winter and smaller in summer, and we also have made some calculation, of course, when in the year that it is available. It is in the winter months. It is coming, but it is not coming steady. It is going up and down. It's a challenge to get it. And here it goes down because we are not putting any wind turbines up, and the pumped hydro is coming here. And then as we are putting more wind energy into the system here in this year, it is growing again. And these figures are, I don't know if they are exact, but it is at least as large as this. In 2030, it is 140 gigawatt hours. This is more than we used to have all the houses in Faroe Islands heated with electric energy, or all the transport on land with electric energy. So it is a lot of energy. And I will end with 2 demonstration projects that are going on here in Faroe Islands right now, in a Nordic collaboration, where the one of the project is building a boat for the salmon industry. Kári Mortensen are going to tell you about it in a moment. But it is a 100% electric vessel, and it is charging in nighttime and sailing in daytime. And in nighttime, we often will have surplus renewable energy. And it will be ready to operate early in 2022. And the other project we are also building right now is in the big of Lorvik, in the town of Lorvik in Estrøy, where we are setting up a small district heating system with heat pumps and with heat storage. It is small, but in Faroe Island it's not so small. These houses that are going to be converted to heat pumps, they use today almost 100,000 liters, 100 tons of oil for heating. So it is a good change, a good energy shift from fossil fuel to renewables. And this is optimized. This system here is optimized to get as much as possible of renewable surplus energy. So this is one way we can use it. I think that was all for me now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kári, for a very fine presentation. To the audience online, there are possibilities of setting questions in on Slido and also in the YouTube stream. So please pose questions, and we will ask them to the presenters later. Now, thank you very much, Kári. Now we will make a new effort to get our participant from UK with Jon Jordan. So just bear with me.
Yeah. Yes, I can see you on the screen of people trying. Have a look where we are here.
We can hear him now, so he just has to share his presentation.
Could you please share your presentation?
Need to go back. That's
talk about, Janus. There are plans, yes. The private companies that are putting up wind turbines, they have described, both of them have described plans for this. You can use the oxygen in the salmon farming, salmon breeding. You need a lot of oxygen for breeding the small fishes when they are swimming on land.
Hello. Hi there.
Yes.
Hello.
Can you hear me, Jon? Can you hear me? He's not on YouTube, I think. That's why. I'm sorry. We have to move on. So we go to the next presentation.
Hello.
This is not going very well.
Hello.
Sorry about that. You have to call him. Okay, we try again. Sorry for this technical problems that we're having with the external presenter. But now we are going to the presentation from Effo and from Janus Thomsen. He's the CEO of Effo, which is a local oil distribution company and also active in the renewable energy sector. So please, floor is yours.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sigurd, and thank you for having me on this webinar. As Sigurd said, my name is Janus Thomsen, and I am a CEO of Effo, which is a Faroese energy company, of course, based here in the Faroe Islands. And I would just like to speak a bit about just a short introduction about the company and which plans we have regarding sustainability and some challenges we see in the market as well. So just a short introduction to Effo. We're based here, as I said, in the Faroe Islands. We are under Faroese ownership, Faroese investors, established in 1918, so it's quite an old company. Formerly a part of Esso, and somewhere in the 80s became a part of Statoil. And then in 2007, some Faroese investors came together and bought the Norwegian, the Faroese branch of Statoil. So since 2007, we've been a Faroese company. When I say energy company, I have to admit that we're primarily an oil company, as things are at the moment. Just some stats here. We deliver around 22 million liters of gas and gasoline and diesel to transport, around 22 million liters to households, around 1 million liters of jet fuel, and 80 million liters of gas oil to the marine segment, and 130,000 tons of heavy fuel oil to the marine segment and to heavy industry. So that's quite large numbers, and this is around half of the Faroese market. We have around half of the Faroese market. Apart from this is the total number of heavy fuel or total volume of heavy fuel in the Faroe Islands. We have a distribution network around, basically the entire country. We have 13 gas stations, and then we have made our entrance into the sustainability journey. And in 18, we bought half of a company which produces wind power. So currently, also today, is quite windy. We actually produce green energy. It's a very small plant. But as Kári mentioned, we are working on constructing a 25 megawatt wind farm here just above the capital in Tórshavn. So that's very exciting. Regarding our sustainability journey, we have entered this initiative called the Faroese Sustainable Business Initiative, which Anna will describe and go into more detail later on. But in that initiative, we are some businesses who have come together and agreed upon some milestones. And we have agreed to reduce our CO2 emissions by 50% in 2030. And that's scope 1 and 2. And also, being one of the big players in the energy market in the Faroe Islands, we want to help our customers and support their sustainable journey. So we want to support their efforts to become more sustainable and by providing sustainable products to them. So the big question is, how do we do that? And before I move on, before you get too excited, I have to admit, I don't have the definite answer, so just relax. If I start off with some opportunities we see in the green energy market, of course we have looked at wind farms because that's a political goal we have in the Faroe Islands. That's a market we can do something. And as I said, we're currently constructing this wind farm, which will produce 100 gigawatt hours per year. And internationally, that's quite small, but here in the Faroe Islands, it's a huge project, actually. It will raise the wind power from 12% to around 40%. If we look at these slides over here, we can see that the current wind production is around 12%, and our plant will generate around 28%. We'll increase that, so it's around 40%. And 100 gigawatt hours, that equals all the consumption of all households in the Faroe Islands. So it's quite a large project. And also, if all the vehicles in the Faroe Islands were electrical vehicles, that would amount to around 100 gigawatt hours. So it's a large project. So it's very, very exciting. And as we heard earlier, also there's some work being done currently with a pump to storage facility, and that's also a project we have focused quite a lot on and are very keen on being a part of as well. And as we see it, it's essential, it's imperative to have a storage like this, because we need to store energy in the future also, especially when demand exceeds supply of sustainable energy. Because when in our industry, in the oil industry, we need to have a stable supply of fuels. We cannot live without fuels for 3 days and say, don't worry, 3 days we'll be back. It doesn't work that way, and it won't work that way with other fuels. So it's just a fact. We try to work within a concept, but we always need to have an open mind as well. So we aren't fixed on one technology. We try to see what's going on around the world. And if we look beyond the electricity produced by wind farms, which fuels will be used for heavy-duty vehicles and heavy industry and the marine segment, etc. And there are a lot of possibilities. There isn't a certain path to follow as it is right now, and there are a lot of possibilities. But as I say here, no matter which path is followed, it seems like hydrogen will play a major part, no matter what. And if we look at this picture here, we can see that it describes various fuels which are being discussed as the future fuels. And in all those fuels, if it's, of course, hydrogen, and then green ammonia or synthetic fuels or methanol, it always contains hydrogen. So hydrogen, it seems now, will play a major part. So that's something we have noticed, and therefore we think that, well, hydrogen, we should focus on that at least. And looking at hydrogen in the Faroe Islands, it seems quite ideal to produce hydrogen here. We have a lot of the ingredients, we have the elements on our side. We have lots of water, probably too much if you ask us who live here, and lots of wind. But that's the ingredients we need to produce hydrogen. So that's very good in that regard. If we look at a market situation, we can say that Faroe Islands are situated here in the middle of nowhere, some say, but in the middle of the North Atlantic. It's like a highway gas station, so it should be appealing to the marine market to come in here and get their supplies of fuels, as they do, as we can see they do today. And if we are successful in the Faroe Islands in producing hydrogen or other sustainable fuels to a low cost, we can be competitive to our neighboring countries and maybe turn it around, the picture we see today, where we import all the energy, then we can probably export it. That's a nice thought, we think. Looking a bit more inland in the Faroe Islands, we see that the Faroe Islands is quite a small country. It's well developed, so it should be possible to make a relatively quick transformation, because the decision makers are never far away, and the companies are never far away, so everyone can interact and have a good discussion about this, as we are doing, for example, in this by doing this. Also, we can say that in the Faroe Islands we are always on island mode. We are not connected to any other grids around Europe, so we are heavily dependent on our own energy production. And that's a bad thing in many ways, because maybe the prices could be lower, etc. But when we see scenarios like we see now in Europe and other places where the prices are exploding, we can say, well, maybe it's not that bad that we are alone here in the North Atlantic, because, for example, the wind farm we are producing now, or are erecting the windmills now, there's a fixed price for the next 20 years. So in the Faroe Islands, we know what the price of energy will be for the next 20 years, and that's a really good thing. And looking at the distribution network, there currently is an existing network around all the islands, which consists of gas stations, of storage facilities, etc. So the areas are there, so it should be possible to transform them into other fuels. So let's move on to the challenges. Unfortunately, there are quite a few. I've just said it is a positive that we are here in the North Atlantic by our own, but it's also a negative, because we really need to have a consistent production of supply, like of energy, like we do with supply today. There's for the last 100 years, it never happened that we didn't have any fuels here, and if we are to only produce our own energy here, we really need to be careful and do it the right way, so we always have enough fuel in the Faroe Islands. Our main energy consumers in the Faroe Islands are heavy industry and fishing vessels, and their consumption varies quite a lot, depending on, for example, seasonal fishing, and it's difficult to manage storage. It's actually difficult as it is, so it's probably it won't be easier in the future. Sustainable electricity production during summer periods, there's a low production, and that's something we need to fix, and we can do that by having large storages, for example, pumped storage, as we talked about earlier. The grid costs currently are too high if we want to produce and be competitive in producing green fuels. So the only solution is probably to go off-grid and just erect some wind turbines who produce, for example, hydrogen directly. And the hydrogen technology, the production facilities, they're still quite expensive. But hydrogen production has come a long way as we see it. There's a lot of companies developing electrolysers which produce hydrogen, but storage and distribution is still lacking, and it's a major challenge. The good thing is that technology advances fast, but the bad thing with that is it's extremely difficult for decision makers to say we want to we'll focus on this technology and just establish some factories or something based on this technology, because after a year or two it has changed. So it's very difficult to make decisions when things go as fast as this. So just to sum it up, the elements are present for hydrogen production in the Faroe Islands. We think we have a lot of water and we have a lot of wind. It's a small but well-developed country, so we should make a transition possible. And the greatest challenges as we see it are costs and securing stable supply to the market, and storage and distribution. Those are the major challenges. And every sustainable fuel seems to include hydrogen, so hydrogen, we're quite sure, will play a part in the future, as things are now. That's it. Thank you.
Janus, I think there are questions.
Yeah.
It's on.
Okay, sorry, these questions may be for yourself, but they may also be for Kári, so apologies for the slight delay. So the first question, whichever of you want to pick it up, are there any plans for hydrogen? Are there any hydrogen projects in plans already on the Faroes?
No, not currently. No.
Okay.
Not concrete projects, just ideas and discussions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, just while I find these.
Maybe someone else has plans. I don't. Yeah.
There's a question here from Anton, and I think it's directed at Kári. In your prediction of surplus energy, what assumptions were made in terms of increasing electrical vehicle use or increasing heat pump use?
So the question is how we can use surplus energy in...
No, what were your predictions for increasing use based
Oh, yeah.
on...
Yes, the predictions are that we are going to be 100% renewable in the consume or in the energy sector. When we talk about energy to heating and energy to transport on land, we will change all the park. So that will diminish the amount of surplus energy, of course. But as I mentioned, it is not enough to get rid of it. So it's still a source for new thinking and new development. I don't know. Is that good? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, and the last question, again, maybe to either of you. Has the case for offshore wind been considered on the Faroes?
Kári, that one's for you.
I think this is a very interesting question, and I plan to have something about it but 15 minutes is too little time. We are looking into offshore wind, but it's my own opinion, is that when the floating wind turbines will be ready, and they are ready, and when they will go down in price and in cost of production, maybe in 5 years it will come down to under 50 euro per megawatt hour, then it will be really interesting case for the Faroe Islands, because we have we are a small place on land, but we are a very big place on sea. We have maybe the size of Denmark in area where we can put floating wind turbines out of sight, but in close 25 kilometers out. So really, and this is also one great opportunity for producing hydrogen. There are of course challenges, but I think that there will be solutions.
Okay, thank you very much, Janus. We will just take a 5-minute break just to make ready for the next presentation, and so in 5 minutes we'll start again, and then it will be Anna Holden Peters having the presentation. Thank you.
We're gonna try at the end. So let's have all the presentations, and then we'll try.
I agree.
For helping us with this.
at the end.
Take it after the next
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah.
Can you see who's that? We were joking there. It's probably the grid company here.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, we should probably start again. I'm not sure where the technician went. We'll just start again. Yes, hello, welcome back. We are now ready for the next presenter, which is Anna Holden Peters. Anna is leading the Burðardygt Vinnulív initiative, a network of 12 businesses operating in the Faroe Islands, who are working on UN Sustainable Development Goals to address climate change, biodiversity loss and ocean health. Anna holds an MSc in management from the University of Bath and a postgraduate certificate in sustainable business from CISL, Cambridge University. Prior to setting up this project, she has held roles in corporate sustainability for 12 years at Bakkafrost, TUI Travel, the Royal Bank of Scotland and the John Lewis Partnership. The floor is yours, Anna.
Thank you for the introduction. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about Burðardygt Vinnulív, the sustainable initiative that we set up January this year, but also tell you a little bit about what motivated us when we set it up. And then finally I want to talk a little bit about the power of collaboration. Before I do any of those, I want to start off by just telling you a very short story. I'm going to read it. So I'm going to take you back 4,000 years to China and the time of the Great Flood. For thousands of years, China's Yellow River would regularly burst its bank, causing widespread chaos and wiping out entire communities. According to an old legend, a clan appointed a man named Gun to tame the river. If he succeeded, he would get lots of glory and he would be rewarded for his task. But if he failed, he would pay with his life. Gun did his best, building dams to stop the flooding, but the river force was too great, and unfortunately his life came to a bitter end. It's a very sad story to start with. However, it takes a turn. After his death, his son Yu was appointed to give with the same task. He vowed that that he would not return to his pregnant wife until he had tamed the wild river. To do this, Yu created a vast network of channels diverting the full force of the river. This was not only a colossal work of engineering, but also a massive diplomatic challenge which he had to overcome. He would have to convince hundreds of rival clans to cooperate for his plan to succeed, putting aside centuries of bad feelings. The entire project really relied upon these people coming together and collaborating. The epic engineering project succeeded, and he went back to his wife. The story is told by the BBC because it was the beginning of China. Yu was created one of the first Chinese empires. But the reason I'm telling you the story today is because I think it's a really nice example of successful collaboration to overcome monumental shared challenges. And that's the beginning of my presentation today. So today we are facing two big challenges. We are hearing about climate change and biodiversity loss. The latest IPCC report talks about Code Red, We're facing really, really big problems and really big challenges. Many scientists have come together to delineate 9 planetary boundaries, and within these boundaries, we know it's safe for humans to live on Earth. Outside of these boundaries, we don't know what's certain. We've already transgressed 5 of those. Climate change and biodiversity are 2 of them. The reason why this is important for the business sector is firstly because we're seeing a massive emergence of regulation. Secondly, because we're seeing really big shifts in consumer demand and spending. And thirdly, because we're seeing a really big change in the access and cost of capital. One of the biggest changes we've seen is since the UN Sustainable Development Goals came out in 2015. I think this was the first time that in earnest all actors came together to really take on some of these challenges. We had policymakers talking to the financial sector and the private sector at the same time. And that led to one of the biggest announcements in 2019 for the European EU Green Deal, which is probably one of the most significant announcements that I've heard in my career. Efforts to try and move 1 trillion euros into green investments has meant they've had to introduce new regulation, and which we're all aware of. In January this year, the EU taxonomy comes into play, and with that we will start to see that businesses are facing increasing reporting requirements. As well as increasing regulation, we're also seeing a big shift in public sentiment. We're seeing an increase in certification programs, organic standards, and we're starting to see that all of the reports that talk about consumer trends have sustainability right at the centre. One of the reports that came out last year, which is done on a regular basis by Edelman, showed that there is a big growing expectation of the business sector to take action. 74% of 54,000 people asked across 28 markets said that they think CEOs should take a lead on change. That's up 9 points from 2 years before. We're also seeing that the younger population are feeling very despondent about our response to climate change. A BBC report from last month, following a survey carried out by Bath University with 10,000 people aged between 16 to 25, they say 75% find the future frightening. 65% say that they think the governments are failing them, and 40% depressingly say that they're really considering whether they should start a family or not because of the future. The third area which I think makes this code red situation incredibly relevant for the business community is the speed of change that we're witnessing across financial markets. We're seeing a really, really big increase in the amount of investments being channeled to sustainable investments, and investors are starting to use ESG to really screen who they invest in. The portfolios are completely changing, and publicly listed companies are now having to fill out massive and many questionnaires. I've done that in many of my roles, answering huge amount of questions relating to climate change, not only in your direct operations, but also across your supply chain. As well as an increase in ESG questionnaires, you're also starting to see people are actually voting with their money. So we're seeing a massive movement in the divestment away from fossil fuels. I read that yesterday divestments now total more than $39 trillion. 1,300 organizations have divested away from fossil fuels, 58,000 individuals, and a third of all of those in numbers are faith organizations such as the Church of England, who will no longer put their money into fossil fuels. We're also seeing favourable rates in lending, both at a consumer level but also at a business level. So we're seeing really, really big changes. In the Faroe Islands, we have companies that have customers and investors both in the UK and in the European Union. The Faroe Islands, of course, are also going to be subject to both the transitional risks from climate change and nature loss, but also the physical risks. The Faroese economy is heavily reliant upon a stable climate and a healthy ocean. As Janus mentioned, the Faroe Islands are small enough that you can make changes quickly. So there is a really big opportunity for the business sector here to do something about it. And that's what we tried to do when we set up Burðardygt Vinnulív. We're a CEO network of 12 businesses, and the idea that we had was that we would come together to try and advance sustainable business practice in the Faroe Islands. We're going to work together for a minimum of 3 years. And then we have 5 objectives that we came behind. The first was to build knowledge and capability of the members in the network, relating specifically to the risks and opportunities presented by climate change, biodiversity loss specifically. Secondly, we would develop a strategic approach which was aligned with scientific recommendations and international standards. Third, we would try and create a platform for these businesses to talk and come up with some ideas and collaborate. Fourth, we would also develop a strategic stakeholder engagement plan, not only between the business community here in the Faroe Islands, but also with other actors here in the Faroes, including the Environment Agency. And fifth, the idea is that we would be able to demonstrate responsible leadership, not only inspiring other people in the Faroe Islands in the business sector, but also hopefully at a personal level. The 12 members, founding members, are all very different. Bakkafrost is an aquaculture company, Dept is a bank, Effo, energy company, Faroe shipping, Burðardygt, Faroese telecom, Gistovist, hospitality and tourism, JT Electric, marine electro supplier, KJ, machine supplier, MBM, Faroese Dairy Association, Paul Mikkelsen, wholesaler, SMJ, engineer consultants, and Vonin, fisheries, aquaculture and offshore supplier. We're also partnering with Janus, who are auditing the data in our reports. So you can see all these businesses are incredibly different, but they do work together. And they all have a common understanding that if they don't protect their natural capital, they're going to be putting at risk their financial capital in the future. Together, these businesses make up around 15% of the private workforce here in the Faroe Islands, minus the numbers from Burðardygt, and about 11% of the carbon emissions, just looking at their scope 1 and 2 emissions. We've made a commitment to work on 3 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, but actually indirectly we may be working on more. The 3 that we've chosen are climate action, as I've already mentioned, life below water, and life on land. We're going to be following scientific recommendations as we develop our plans, and as we know, to stay in line with the 1.5 degree scenario which is recommended, businesses and countries are going to have to limit or halve their carbon emissions by 2030, net zero by 2050. And this is actually going to create a really big challenge for a lot of these businesses in the group because they have really ambitious growth plans. So they're going to have to completely decouple their carbon emissions from their growth. On the 21st of September this year, we made an announcement that we would become the first group of companies here in the Faroes to set science-based targets in line with the Paris Agreement goals, and that we will be submitting all of these targets to the Science-Based Target Initiative for them to verify them. All the companies committed to reducing their scope 1 and 2 emissions by at least 50% by 2030, as Janus said. And 3 of the companies have gone further to net zero commitment by 2030. We'll all be talking about how we might get to net zero anyway. All of the companies have had their targets assured by Janus. We're also looking and closely following the development of standards to guide businesses as they consider their biodiversity impacts. So we'll be looking at reducing marine pollution and also how these businesses can protect and restore ecosystems. They made a commitment, each of the businesses, again in September, to at least in one area set a net positive commitment relating to one area of their activity. These are all very different commitments. Some of them are relating to bird life, particularly the one from Effo with the wind farms, which is obviously we're putting up these wind farms, but they do have biodiversity impacts as well. So thinking about it from that perspective as well. Ocean pollution, raw material mining, land use change, and the list goes on. The commitments they've made so far cover direct and indirect impacts. And they also involve supporting one another, engaging with their customers, and engaging with their suppliers. The next step will actually be to develop these plans. And these are really ambitious plans, and there's a lot of work to do. First of all, it's actually understanding what are the baselines for these commitments, what are the metrics, where is the data going to come from, and that is going to be a really big task that these businesses are taking on. The benefits of us coming together, I think, are many, but I've listed a few here today. The first is that these businesses are sharing knowledge. Some of the businesses are further ahead than others, and they are sharing their experiences, their learnings, and also the pitfalls. We're also sharing resources. They're sharing me and some other consultants on this project, but we're also developing lots of resources that they can actually use, practically taking a lot of this work forward. They're also inspiring each other. I've already heard talk of some really interesting and exciting projects that they might take on together. And they have made a commitment to each other in this project. So I think nobody really wants to be the weakest link. So I think when I first asked them to submit their targets to me, I had no idea how ambitious they were going to be. So given some of these companies only started working on this in January this year, we've already got to this stage, I think is really exciting. I think together these businesses also have a louder voice. There are challenges here in the Faroe Islands with the transition to low carbon. And I think it's important that these businesses speak out about these challenges if they want to transition and make these changes. I'm also hoping that working together will mean that we'll get improved performance. But maybe we'll come and talk again next year when we've published our first report. And finally, I think working together, one thing it does I have seen in the group is there's a huge amount of integrity with the work that's being done. Everybody is in it, nobody wants to let each other down, and it's something that I've really seen being fostered as a result of these meetings. So what is next for the group? The phase 2 is that we're going to be developing a baseline for their scope 3 emissions and then setting targets, and then we will be submitting them to the Science Based Targets Initiative. So we're not just looking at direct impacts, but also indirect impacts. And again, that's quite fast for a group of companies to go on from nothing to this already. We've already published a report with our plan, but we are committing to, for the next 3 years, that we're working together to publish a report with all of our performance. So there's 100% transparency, and I think this is incredibly important. And I hope we will succeed. Hopefully, we will not face the same consequences as poor Gun in China. But we hope that we'll be able to share that success when we do publish our results. And I'm going to leave one last thing with you to contemplate, and it's an African proverb, and it reads, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I hope we're going to go fast and far. Thank you.
So perhaps there are questions?
So no questions for this presentation, but there might be
one for.
Yeah. So if we skip back, and they may be relevant to the last presentation too, but the question that was raised from Matthias Holbeck was, can you elaborate on the too high grid costs of hydrogen? Sorry.
Yes, I think the question was if I could elaborate why the costs of producing hydrogen through the grid, right, were too high compared to off-grid. Yeah. When we are speaking to or talking to our clients and our potential customers, they have absolutely no interest in paying more for their energy than they are doing today. So what we try to do is try as hard as we can to at least match that price they're paying today. And that's one of our criteria when we are working with this. And when we look at the prices which currently are for using the grid, we can see that the prices are double of the production costs. So when we produce and sell to the grid, the costs for using the grid are above 2 times that price. And moreover, that's not the only cost. We also have to pay for stability costs on the grid. So when the power reaches the electrolyser, we probably paid 4 times the production costs. So that's why we say that it's too expensive as it is. Yeah.
I need to read it, sorry. And it's to either Janus or Kári. Are there plans to reduce grid cost to motivate the use of the surplus energy?
I wish I could answer, but I don't have the power, so that's hard. Once more.
Are there plans to reduce grid costs to motivate the use of surplus energy?
This is not in my power to say something about that, but I think it is on the web. We have to do it, and we will do it in 1 or 2 years' time. We have such a big change in the regime that we have to be more flexible, to be more open for new solutions, and to make several different grid costs. You can have cost for usual daytime, and you can have cost for energy in surplus, which comes in the night, or on other times when the traffic is not so much in the grid. It will be in the interest of everybody in the Faroe Islands, including the grid company. So this times they will come this time.
Yes, thank you. And then we will go to the next presenter, which is Kári Mortensen, Sales and Procurement Manager at MEST Shipyard. Kári joined MEST Group in 2015 and is part of the management team. Prior to MEST, Kári worked with the Faroese IT company Electron and Faroese Telecom. Kári has a master's degree in business administration from 1988 from Copenhagen Business School, and has during the 80s and 90s worked in London and Copenhagen as management consultant and partner with PA Consulting Group. Well.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much for getting the opportunity to talk about MEST and our work on building the first aquaculture emission-free workboat. Thank you very much. First of all, I'll spend just 1 minute talking a little bit about our company. We have 120 years of experience working in shipbuilding and ship repair. We have 500 craftsmen, 2 yachts, 1 stainless steel workshop, and a net sales of 420 million kroner. So we are a fairly large company in the Faroe Islands. We have a dry dock in Skala, which is in the neighbouring island Eysturoy. We have a dry dock, slip, workshop, construction hall, and all that what you would expect from a company like ours. We also are in these very premises here where we are sitting now. Just next door we have the shipyard, and in all the buildings you see here we have construction halls, we have storages, we have machinery departments, headquarters and everything just next door to this university. So they are good partners here. And maybe some of you will visit us afterwards. We have some construction halls and workshop. As you can see, the floor is very clean. It was just painted at this step. We invest into modern equipment all the time so that we stay ahead of the game. And we are very proud of having a good drawing department with civil engineers and other good people, where we have state-of-the-art equipment and software, which is very important to produce some important solutions within this very area. We have 13 employees in that area who work with design, consultancy and project management. Here is Mr. Runavik, which is our stainless steel workshop, a fairly large one, who works with factories and stuff like that on board vessels and onshore with Bakkafrost and other aquaculture companies. Our customers are both sea-based and land-based. Here is one of the example of our aquaculture area, which is a catamaran workboat for Bakkafrost. Here is in Strand Bakkafrost, and other examples of vessels as well as power stations. So we are both land-based and working on sea. We try as much as possible to be a part of the innovation process, to be a part of the environmental solutions, and our part is very often the practical part. So we have worked with all the windmills in the Faroe Islands, where we have a part of servicing the windmills. So we have a number of people constantly being on courses in Europe in order to get the opportunity to service these windmills. In Suðuroy, we as well have been a part of installing the windmills. We are used to the wind. We are not frightened of going up in the heights, so we have a part there. So we continuously invest into that. This is an interesting one, which was Minesto, which is working in the fjords of Vestmanna, where they test kites below the sea in order to produce power. Minesto is a Swedish-based company, and we help them doing all the practical work in doing these tests, where they produce energy from the tide, from the current. This one you cannot see as clearly as you should, but here we have installed some wings, wave foils, which makes the ferries go more smooth through the water, and because they spread out and they go more smooth through the water, and it's an energy saving of between 5 and 15%. It's a well-kept secret. We'd not talk too much about it because everyone else will go after this. These are foils and wings we put into the vessel. Very practical. Anyway, here is where we are based. We are based in the middle of the North Atlantic, 1 hour from Norway, Iceland, Scotland, and fairly near Greenland as well. We find ourselves in the middle of a maritime sweet spot. We are in the middle of the world. We are not out in the area, because we find that a lot of maritime activity is happening in this area. And we have to, as was mentioned earlier, we have to produce things ourselves on these islands. We have to find out solutions ourselves. Secondly, we are very flexible. We have to adapt to challenges. We cannot wait for weeks for someone. We have to do it ourselves. So if you look at this circle, this is just 1 hour for any sort of service you need. So this is very good for a company like ours, that you can get this sort of services. You have a high standard of infrastructure, which you will experience while you are staying for a week here. You will see the subsea tunnels. This is a very great advantage for us. Nothing is more than 20 minutes, half an hour from us. We have a skilled workforce. Collaboration is very good between companies, as was mentioned just earlier. And finally, what we are working towards is a very quick service, so that the vessels have a short dwelling time and the downtime for companies is very short. We have built more than 100 vessels over the years. The last one was built in 2020, a very large, not very large, but a large oceanic research vessel for the Faroese government. We're very proud of that vessel because it's one of the most quiet vessels in the world. We do not want to disturb the fish, you see, doing research work. So this is built according to all sort of state-of-the-art parameters, making it the most quiet one, so they can make more accurate research results. And state-of-the-art accommodation as well. We want people to thrive on board. We want scientists to work on board. Now to the case today, green energy workboat. We won this in competition with others, and we were very excited to go ahead with this one because it's a big challenge to make a 100% green workboat. So this is the workboat if you look at the specifications. 50 meters long, 7 meters wide. Recommended speed is 8 knots, and it can go up to 10 knots. And the bullet pull is 9 tons. So it's perfect for the working conditions which you have out in the fjords here with the aquaculture rings. Yeah? So this lives up to all those criteria. The solution, in short, is an energy-saving design where the whole design and choice of equipment is made, everything is made to save energy. The selected battery solution is available for use today. Other energy solutions were investigated, but no one was ready in the very near future. The working day becomes quieter, cleaner and easier for them who work on board. The solution can be implemented immediately when the boat is ready, and all the work is carried out here in the Faroe Islands. That's the solution in short. We opted out biogas, hydrogen and other options. Why? Hydrogen, missing class approval. The classification authorities did not approve this. Lack of infrastructure in the Faroe Islands, as was mentioned earlier. Hydrogen has a power kilowatt hour price than battery, much higher. And we actually looked into it, and the additional price in the operating would be around 300,000 kroner per year compared to a battery solution. That's just the operating cost. Looking into biogas, you need a big tank on board, engine to burn the gas, and there's a noise pollution on board. So we sort of opted that out as well. And finally, methanol and ammonia, still on a test basis and not ready. The supply is not in place. Having said all that, if you visit conferences around Europe, you can see a lot of developments are happening here. And a number of our suppliers are trying to do marketing around all these areas. You can actually see systems which could solve this, which could solve that, etc. But when I ask them what is the price, they say, twice as much as battery. When I ask them, can we get supply for this? No, not yet. So it's basically just a gimmick, but it works. But we can see that it's only a matter of time when some of these solutions would be ready. The energy saving design, what we did was doing tests in our laboratory, simulation tests with advanced computing, in order to get the resistance as low as possible. So we tried to make it go as fast and as possible, and saved 9% energy just by doing the design correctly. So there you are. Just by doing wings, doing designs, you can save energy. The propulsion engine, which makes sure that the whole thing works. PM motor with a high power and less energy waste. The propeller, controllable pitch, and an energy optimization because of that technology. And finally, this all gives 8 nautical miles per hour, which is okay for this vessel, and this is what we are proud of. The battery solution was from Brunvoll in Norway. Why did we choose Brunvoll? Because we knew this company. They provide solutions, and they have provided solutions for the ferry which we are using in the Faroe Islands, Erla Kongstadter. So instead of choosing perhaps the cheapest solution, we went for a solution which we relied on. Relatively light and compact solution, and designed for a long life, and thereby a more environmentally friendly solution. So this was the battery. And the selected solution, the battery, also takes environment seriously, as we have heard just earlier. The supplier includes the environment and recycling in the system. And this is a significant part of their system. So the battery actually comes from Faroes, which is a Canadian company. The purpose is to maintain a sustainable life from birth to death of these batteries. What's interesting here is that the batteries, when they are worn out, we cannot use them anymore on the catamaran workboats. Around 70% of it can be recycled and used physically at the small stations after 15 years or so. So this is interesting. It's not just thrown away, but can be reused. The construction cost, built in the Faroe Islands, the price is the same as for other catamaran workboats. The only difference is that the battery solution gives the extra additional cost. And the battery prices are expected to be reduced to a third over the next 5 years. That's what we can see when we read literature. And it happens all the time. So this is interesting to see what happens here. Operating costs, 311 kroner per hour. Converted, it's 3 kroner per kilowatt hour. And that is cheaper than what they do today in operating the catamaran workboats. All work undertaken here in the Faroe Islands. This was proud people who had made the hull and the steel work. This was when it went to surface treatment, and that's approximately where we are now. The finished workboat will look very much like this. The accommodation is sort of okay to work on, and this is the machinery area. The only difference is that it'll not be an engine there. It'll be 2 big battery packages, huge big battery packages. But hopefully they will change and be reduced over time, the size of the battery packages. So actually we had to make this catamaran workboat 30 centimeters higher because it's so heavy, the battery packages. In summary, everyday life will become better, much better. You will get less noise when you work on board, less pollution, no smoke and gas on board, very little maintenance, because the elements on board are static. It's not like everything is rolling around. and it'll be charged once a day with cheap power at night, with the plug and charging station, just like you have with cars. So every night they will make sure this happens. And this is how the vessel will look like, exactly like this when it's finished. We have put on this green line here, and it's zero emission here. So this was the short presentation of the actual work. You will see the catamaran workboat later on. Okay?
Thank you very much, Rikard. Very interesting. Are there any questions, Barbara? Not at this moment. Okay. So we will see if we have connection to London.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Can you hear me, Jon? Can you hear me? Is he on YouTube? Are you on YouTube? Is he? Are you on YouTube?
Hello.
Yes, hello. Are you on YouTube?
Hello. Hello. I think it goes back to that. It seems to be. Yeah. I've got. Yeah, I'm just oh, good. Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah. That's fine. I'll start now. Hi, this is Jon Jordan. Can you hear me? Can I start now? Right. Hello. Jon Jordan. Okay, you can. Okay. Thanks. It's difficult when there's no comeback, you know. But yeah, I'll just start. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thanks. Hi, I'm Jon Jordan. I'm Secretary of the North Sea Hydrogen Ports and Maritime Community, which we call NS HyMAP. Apologies not being there in person. I think it would have probably been a lot easier, but it's great to join you not from London, but from a little village about 40 kilometres north of Edinburgh. Next slide, please. NS HyMAP began as an information exchange in April 2020. This was after the second North Sea Hydrogen Ports and Maritime Conference. And then we got around 30 members and became a membership-based association, 1st of January 2021. Members are drawn from ports, maritime and hydrogen sectors. and that's quite important. It is important, I think, that hydrogen sector talks more to other sectors, ports and maritime. I work for a company called European Policy Solutions, and we held a hydrogen trains and conference in Edinburgh, and found that this was the first time that the hydrogen and trains industry in the UK had really spoken together. That was about 3 years ago. So it's important that the whole value chain is brought together. So we have members from ports, shipping companies, hydrogen producers, fuel cell manufacturers, and international law firms, to name but a few. And we want to get the whole value chain together in the same way that the offshore wind industry has associations with the whole value chain. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. The importance of the North Sea is apparent. It has some of the largest ports and harbours in the world, and if we're going to make the energy transition, then the North Sea is going to play a major role, and it's important that a hydrogen economy is embraced for the hard-to-abate sectors in terms of energy transition. So that is very much the maritime sector, where batteries and electrification only have a limited role. And by hydrogen, we're talking about hydrogen and hydrogen-derived fuels such as LCOH, methanol, and ammonia. The reason that ports play a major role is they are well suited to becoming hydrogen hubs, or hydrogen valleys, as the in term is called. And we're already starting to look at export and import flows across the North Sea. Some of the Scottish ports will probably start to export hydrogen in the mid-2020s, and the mainland North Sea ports such as Hamburg, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Antwerp are likely to be importers around that time. Next slide, please. So what we want to exploit is ports as hydrogen valleys. Hydrogen valleys is purely a shorthand for integrated regional hydrogen economies. And hydrogen valleys have started in places like Orkney, in the Heaven project in northern Netherlands, and in there are about 36 hydrogen valleys on the hydrogen valleys platform that is run by Mission Innovation and the FCHJU in Brussels. We want to see ports play a key role and realise their potential. And on that slide, we've got a number of reasons why they should become hydrogen valleys and key in the hydrogen transition. Firstly, is their proximity to offshore wind. Secondly, is the large ports such as Hamburg, Rotterdam, Gothenburg are large industrial hubs which need to decarbonise. I've already mentioned the important export of green hydrogen, and hydrogen will be used more and more for activities within the port. so port tractors, lifting gear, and also buses and vans, trucks that are used in the port. And so with that, and heating also has potential to be delivered by hydrogen. There is great advantage for ports to produce hydrogen in large quantities, but also have the users to produce, or to use the hydrogen, I should say. It's the chicken and egg, what comes first, the users or the hydrogen itself. And you've got to have a balanced approach so that you balance production with use. Next slide, please. And we've got, within NS HyMAP, we've got a bunkering and transport group. There's been big movement on bunkering and transport and the introduction of vessels. So we had the first multimodal refueling station opened in Antwerp in the port in June, and that refuels land and sea vessels. We've had hydrogen vessels operating in the North Sea. Hydroville is a very small passenger ferry operating in Antwerp from 2017. That is a dual fuel vessel, but there are ferries that are being developed that have fuel cell operation as well. And there are a whole range of vessels now that can be generated. On top of that, we have the first studies and projects for 100 megawatt electrolysers. The largest electrolyser at the moment are about 20 megawatt, but Tata Steel in Amsterdam have plans for 100 megawatt electrolyser, and the FCHJU Hydrogen Fuel Cell Joint Undertaking has issued projects, has funded projects to produce that amount of hydrogen. We're looking at the types of bunkering, onshore terminals, ship-to-shore, bunker vessels, and ship-to-ship. The first fuels are likely to be gaseous hydrogen. But as the vessels increase in size, you need to look at the energy density. So we're looking at liquid hydrogen, LCOH, ammonia, and methanol. Next slide, please. And we have there, that is the port of Cromarty Firth and in northern Scotland. And I think that's a very useful example of master plans and how to link in production to use. And we've got there a number of different uses. You've got the electricity coming in from, I think it's 15 wind farms out in the sea there, coming to an electrolyser, and then you have different uses. It's likely the green hydrogen will be used in most forms of shipping, but also shipping for export from 2025. It's in a part of Scotland where you will never electrify, electrify the rail network because the passenger and goods traffic is just not high enough. So that can supply the rail network going into Aberdeen and south to Edinburgh. It's unlikely that the line north of the Forth Bridge will be electrified to any great extent. Then we're talking about airport hydrogen in airport, in the transport network. And then a very interesting one as we go round, a distillery. The Scottish government has given about £20 million to projects to develop hydrogen for heat in distilleries. So that is quite a novel use. And I think uses like this will become more and more common. And then if it was a larger port, you could have the port infrastructure used as well. Then we've got aquaculture as a major opportunity, and there is talk of a spaceport in northern Scotland. So that's one of the first users of hydrogen. So a very interesting idea there, and many of the projects are taking shape, and it's an interesting way of mixing or balancing hydrogen production, green hydrogen production from electrolysis, with a variety of uses. Next slide, please. So what we think is going to happen, and ports survive on shipping, so we need to have a look at not only the land side, but the seaside. We've had a number of European projects from about 2017 onwards that developed inland waterway transport, retrofitting barges, large 110-metre barges. We think the expertise there will be used to short sea shipping, and then from 2030 onwards, you'll see more and more liquid hydrogen, ammonia, methanol being used in ocean-going vessels. And generally, the vessels will increase in size as we go through the 2020s, moving probably from gaseous to liquid hydrogen, and then onwards to ammonia. And we've seen some companies who are talking about an ammonia network across the world in, say, 10 years' time, which is very ambitious, I must say. The vessels to be developed or being developed, and this can be fuel cell or dual fuel. So car and passenger ferries are one area. I've mentioned the Hydroville, which is a small passenger ferry of about carrying 20 people. Well, there are talk about towards the end of the 2020s, post 2025, there is talk of a large passenger ferry from Oslo to Copenhagen being a hydrogen ferry. Tugboats, we already have tugboats that are about to be delivered. We have a dual fuel tugboat being delivered in the port of Antwerp. And then one of our members, Nedstack, has developed a fuel cell tugboat. Crew transfer vessels also looked at out to the wind farms. And again, we've got dual fuel and fuel cell crew transfer vessels there, patrol vessels, and then eventually small cargo and container vessels. Next slide, please. It's still very early stages, and we are some of the issues that I've talked about here are the subject of our next conference, where hopefully by the 11th of January we can all meet together, and the theme is developing the maritime hydrogen potential of the North Sea region, And the areas we're looking at is ports as hydrogen valleys, which I've done an initial skate through at the moment. Vessel design will change vessel by vessel. Bunkering and transport, and fit for 55 package, which is a Commission initiative to pave the way for alternative fuels, including hydrogen. So has measures such as Fuel EU Maritime on how to introduce more alternative fuels and bring the price down. And we're hoping that will happen with the amount of hydrogen we can produce through bigger electrolysers, as I mentioned earlier. We're also looking at the North Sea Interreg programme to look at ports as hydrogen valleys. A project there in the North Sea programme. There's a new priority 4, which looks at governance. And ports are very complex operations, and you need to involve all stakeholders, or the major stakeholders, plus levels of government that have economic development responsibilities if you're going to improve and develop ports as hydrogen valleys. We're also looking at a North Sea project in bunkering and transport. For that, we would take 2 or 3 small vessels, look at the propulsion requirements of those vessels, and then link that to the bunkering of individual ports. Some of the bunkering work done is in some Interreg projects has looked generally at bunkering, and I think you've got to link it much more to the vessels that you want to service and put into operation. So that's a very brief summary of what's happening in North Sea hydrogen ports and in the maritime sector. I hope I've done it justice in the amount of time that I've had. And if you want to contact me, my contact details are there. And even better, if you want to book for the Hydrogen Ports and Maritime Conference, the booking details are there. You just follow the seminars button on the website, and that will get you through to the information about the conference and the booking site. Thanks for listening, and apologies for all the problems that we've had in getting me linked up. And thank you for everybody in the Faroe Islands for their patience in linking me up. And thank you for one of the oddest experiences I've had is talking to a screen and getting absolutely no feedback. So I hope the feedback has been good in the hall and people have been nodding. And if it hasn't been good, contact me and let's get a discussion going. Thanks to everybody, and I wish you a very successful conference and a very good afternoon and evening. I'll now go back and see whether there's been any reaction on the YouTube channel.
Thank you very much, Jon, for this very, very interesting presentation and giving us these very detailed insights on what's happening around the North Sea. So thank you very much. So we will continue with the program, I guess. Are there questions? I'm not sure if, yeah?
Yeah, sorry. So these questions probably came in before that presentation. There's a few general questions, but I'm going to ask the 2 specific ones to Richard first, if I may. One is, Does your vessel have a backup generator in case the battery runs empty?
The question is if we have a backup operator,
Generator.
No, we do not. No.
Okay. And this related to that, you mentioned that hydrogen was discounted because it would not be approved by class, but Jon has mentioned in his presentation that there is a hydrogen ferry running a fuel cell.
That's what we learned from our. Maybe I should turn this on. What we heard from our classification bureaus was that it was not classified at this very moment.
So
And
it's a
not-
local issue.
Local issue, I guess, in our region.
Okay, thank you. This is a more general question which has been sitting for a little while. Is there interest from foreign companies to develop Power to X projects in the Faroes? Because there is high potential.
Could you please repeat it?
Is there an interest from foreign companies to develop Power to X projects in the Faroes, as the potential is very high, and it's not necessarily to you, but to others? Thank you.
Yeah, I can only answer of our behalf, of course, from Effo's side, and I can say that from a supplier perspective, there are a lot of companies willing to sell us equipment to produce hydrogen and come up with different solutions. Foreign investors or foreign large companies, no, not directly with us, but there have been some. What should I say? Some dialogue, but nothing concrete as of now. But when we look at where we are and the surroundings and the possibilities, I think it's natural that, and quite likely that the foreign companies will approach us.
All right, so we will continue, and we are moving into discussing the case study for the Faroe Islands, and there are 3 presentations. I will give a very short introduction to the case study, and then Roman Teplo and Aaron Kernahan will expand more on the initial results of the case study. So this is just a project or work in progress that we hope we will finish in the next few months. So yes, let me see. So for the Faroe Islands, we as it already has been mentioned, we are having some excess wind energy now, but looking forward with the potential wind developments that will come over the next years, there will be more and more excess wind energy, and we need to find solutions for how to use this excess wind energy in a clever way. This picture is a bit busy, but it shows sort of an ecosystem for how we can handle the excess energy. And on the top, we can see that the excess energy is transported by the grid to electrolysers at the heat consumer. So there you take care of the excess heat from the electrolyser, which makes the case better, if you like. There's also a value stream for oxygen to a smolt farm, and then the hydrogen goes to storage, which in the first instance will be pressurized. For the Faroe Islands, it's most likely that it will be 440 bar pressurized to begin with. That can then be transported to the end user of the hydrogen, which can be a hydrogen ferry or fish farming workboats. These are the usages that we are considering in the first instance. You could also see in the middle value stream that the excess wind energy goes directly to the electrolyser, so not going through the grid, and then you would have the discussion if there should be paid tariffs or not. But that could potentially make the business case better. So the excess energy going directly to the electrolyser, and in the same way you try to take care of most of the value streams in the most prudent way. And the third would be then you have transport by grid and you transport it to the electrolysers at the quayside, as was mentioned by just the former presenter, Jon, which was a very interesting perspective that he brought up and showed us all the potential usages from the ports being very active in the hydrogen development. So this is more or less the same, just one of them, that we have a centralized electrolyzer facility transported through the grid, and then we have compressed hydrogen road transport, delivery at harbour, and we could perhaps take care of the oxygen if that makes economic sense. So to jump to the initial conclusions for the case study, we can see that the price of hydrogen, if we are producing on a large scale, is estimated to be somewhere around 0.24 euros per kilowatt hour, and that should be compared to 0.08 euro per kilowatt hour, so 3 times as much. So within the same order of magnitude as diesel. But this is based on the electricity cost being 0.68 kroner per kilowatt hour, and that number is taken from some test cases running on the Faroes just now. Kári is running some projects where we are testing the electric aquaculture boat that Rika presented, and also there is a project with a district heating system, and there we have negotiated a price of 68 kroner per kilo, no, 0.68 kroner, 68 euro per kilowatt hour for excess wind energy. So actually decided by the grid company when the energy is available. But then if we are challenging the price for the flexnusla, for the flexible use, for this excess wind energy, what should it cost when it's there? And some would argue that when there's a lot of excess energy that would go to waste otherwise, it is virtually free. But it's only free so long that nobody wants it. As soon as people start to ask for it and buy it, the price will go up. But then we can see that hydrogen can be on par with diesel if we are getting the price for the excess energy down. And that is potentially a good case here in the Faroes, because we will see a lot of excess energy. The problem, of course, is that the excess energy is not available all year round. It's maybe available half of the year or something like that. So storage becomes an issue. Hydrogen production can be initiated at low cost and low risk. So this is a initial case where we look at maybe catamarans, as were presented here, small workboats, or not small, but powerful workboats for operating in the fjords. And as we can see now, the green surplus energy could be around 44%, which is then the flexible use, and then 56% we have to pay full price for. And there the production cost has been estimated to be 0.27 euro per kilowatt hour. And the reason that this is not very is very similar to the price of 0.24 euro per kilowatt hour is that when you say that you will take the conventional electricity when you have to, so that you don't insist on having only surplus energy, then you can reduce your storage tanks, because then the electricity is always free. And this is based on compressed hydrogen storage, and these components, they already exist. You have the tanks, you have the electrolysers, the windmills, etc., etc. So this is a low risk first business first case, business case. This is just an illustration of how the excess energy can look like. This is a prognosis done by SEV maybe 1 or 2 years ago. So based on the at the time expectation of electricity growth on the Faroes, and at the time development plans for wind energy, you could see the peers here with excess wind energy. And it is already quite a lot of wind energy that is not being used by the conventional users. So this creates the opportunity for new value streams. And just to remind us on the complexity of handling hydrogen, so this is showing mass for 1 kilowatt hour for various hydrogen storage forms. Compared to diesel. So if we have 1 kilowatt hour of diesel, it will weigh 79 grams. And if we have 1 kilowatt hour of compressed hydrogen at 440 bar, it will weigh 1,722 grams. So a factor of 1 to 20. And if you look at the volume of 1 kilowatt hour of diesel is 0.1 liter, while for the compressed hydrogen at 440 bar, it's 1.3 liter. So it weighs more and it takes more space. But it's still interesting. And then we have looked into the hydrogen requirements for the maritime sector. And if we just take the entire fishing fleet, this is a rough estimate. It is something like 1,000 gigawatt hours per year, or 2.7 gigawatt hours per day, which equates to something like 82,000 kilos of hydrogen per day, or 3,400 kilos per hour for the entire fishing fleet. If we take the near-shore vessels only, where we focus on the ferries, the catamarans, I think there are around 70 or 80 catamarans. Near-shore fishing boats, these are the very small fishing boats with 1 or 2 men going out for 1 day. There's a total of 586 kilos per hour that these boats will be using. So if we take the low-risk case of 1 fish farming catamaran or 10, they are using about 600 kilowatt hours per day at the propeller, which equates to around 36 kilos of hydrogen per day, or 1.5 kilo per hour. I'm sure there are many people here who know these numbers by heart and can give valuable comments on them. So some of the challenges, they are storing the hydrogen, has been mentioned here as well, because you need to produce when you have the excess wind energy, and you may not be able to distribute the hydrogen as fast as you're producing it. So storing is a big issue. Pricing of the excess wind energy, transportation, and of course minimizing energy loss. If you can take care of the different value streams from the electrolysers, that is also improving the case. So that was a short introduction, and we will go on to the next presenter. Is it Aaron or Roman? Roman. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Roman Teplov, and I am representing Lund University from Finland. And in huge project, we are responsible for developing hydrogen utilization business model for all case studies which we have in project, and also we as a kind of final results, we are going to develop kind of general business model. So I will just briefly overview of our work package. So what we exactly going
going to do, and then I continue to Faroese Case. So, oh,
Roman, just put that microphone down.
yep,
Sorry.
no problem. Okay, so in our work package, basically, we are starting with two main activities as stakeholder analysis and ecosystem analysis, which ends up in individual case study creation. And eventually, once we develop all the case study for focus region in the project, we continue with general business model. So just a very brief about stakeholder analysis objective to identify and analyze different stakeholders for each specific region and case study. For that we but for that we went through different stage of data collection. So we started with data gathering workshops, then we basically collected different case studies, ideas from partners, and we also organized several interviews, and I think we are still gonna be discussing with partners once we develop initial business models. After that, basically we going to ecosystem level, so we trying to map different stakeholders and identify what kind of relationships they have between each other, and we also can see what is currently, if there are any players currently missing, or what could be additional business opportunities. So it's just very simplified model, but for case studies we go into more advanced. So now if you go to specific case study, so I listed just some very general assumptions. So our central actor around which we are building business model is aqua service boat operator, and probably two main assumptions that we have available: hydrogen production, which could be possibly, as Sigurd mentioned, it could be used as surplus of energy. And second, of course, essential assumptions that we have available a hydrogen-powered boat, and what Richard told, it might be actually a problem in this case. But well, we also consider that in this business model and this ecosystem, there is possible also to utilize byproducts of, for example, heat excess and also oxygen. And we next proceeded with building ecosystem map. It looks maybe a bit overcomplicated, but again, basically there are two main parts. So we have our main player, and we have hydrogen kind of supply part, where we have also utilization of byproducts. For example, so heat excess could be utilized in district heating, or for example, it could be also utilized as in fishing farms as a kind of warming up water, and also possibly utilizing oxygen excess. Another important player in this ecosystem is operator for hydrogen refueling system, and as a main player, they provide services for fishing farms, which eventually benefits to end customer who could be just kind of private people or some retailers. And as overall business model, we use kind of business model canvas because it's quite simply to communicate. Of course, it's problematic that it's difficult to consider in the long term, so how it's going to be developed. But as a starting point, so we can see that the main value proposition is zero-emission workboat and services for aquaculture industry, and the main changes for in existing business model is probably going to be on partner and kind of cost side, because so say from customers' perspective, they likely to stay the same, but on the cost side we have costs of new boats, and then we have costs of new fuel. Well, maybe I think we still have one more presentation, so I will go to conclusions now. So, for central actor, so of course there is positive image for industry, and there is possible saving if you have new regulations in terms of emissions coming. But on the other side, it's very important that, and it's very important thing that changes in existing business model, they come mostly from the cost side, and it's availability of reasonably priced new technology is basically critical requirements. And we were thinking what could be different incentives, or maybe vice versa, kind of green taxes to stimulate this transition. But it's I would say at the moment it's probably question for discussion rather than specific conclusion. In terms of, if you look more, if take kind of more general point of view, not from central actor, but from the overall economy and society, of course we have benefits from energy security and energy resilience, since we now not depend on import fuel, since all fuel is produced on site, and benefit from emission reduction, and also there is possible to alternative or even complementary application areas of for example, it could be district heating, or it could be also utilization of oxygen. So it's possible kind of step into more holistic hydrogen economy in the end. Yeah, that's basically what at the moment it's just still in the process of development. So if there are any questions, comments, probably it would be very, very good to discuss, but perhaps after next presentation.
Thank you, Roman. And next is Aaron.
Thanks for taking time to listen to me today. I know it's been a long day, so I'll try and keep this fairly sort of high level, but one of the things we've been working on is creating, as Desi mentioned earlier on at the very start, a techno-economic assessment tool. And we kind of think there's a few different bits that feed into making this sort of work together and fit together. So there's some key components we've come up with to try and make this tool work and look at developing different things out of it. So some of those key components, we've evaluated the scale of a project. Obviously, the size of a project is going to have a massive impact on, maybe which technology you use and the economics of it. We're going to look at the technology. Similarly, the different technologies are going to have different impacts. We're going to look at sort of a bit of a cash flow analysis, some economic comparisons, and also, which I think is quite key, is the transferability. And one of the sort of ideas of having these case studies is for people to be able to look and see that maybe we could do that as well. But obviously, their situation may not be exactly the same. So we want to be able to say, look, if this is a case study that we've looked at. If you take some examples, but make some tweaks, you can see that what you want to do is maybe going to work as well. So one of the first things that we did sort of at the outset of the project was to define the different scales of project that we were going to be looking at. We came up with basically 3 levels. We have a micro scale, and micro scale is, just to give a very quick example, would be looking at the likes of a site where you've got your renewable energy technology, your electrolyser, and your end use all within the same site, very small area. The mesoscale, we're looking at maybe a national level where perhaps you have your renewable technology in one site, then it's the energy provided is transferred along to another site where your electrolyser is maybe 20, 30 miles down the road, or your end use is in a different part of the country, different part of the town. And then macro level is transnational. That's kind of the level we're at, obviously, with the likes of oil and gas and so on, where your oil is produced in the North Sea and used in Australia, whatever it happens to be. So that's kind of the levels we're looking at. So when it came to the Faroes case study, and you've probably recognized this little diagram, I've seen that a couple of times before, sort of looking at it and trying to analyze where it fitted in, we kind of came to the conclusion that, based on primarily on the fact that the hydrogen is being transported between areas, but also actually the grid transport section of it, that it probably falls under what we call on that definition, a mesoscale. And what that allows us to do then is to look at a few different bits and pieces and make a few tweaks to that to help us look at transferability and so on in the future. With regards to some of the transferability to other end periods, another thing that we carried out at the start of the project, so the little table on the left here, as you look at it, was where sort of we felt that each region was, as far as having sort of projects or developments in that area at that time. So I think it was in early 2020. And then the table on the right is looking at the potential for the future. So basically, as you can see, at the time there wasn't maybe a huge amount. Red means there was nothing. Orange meant there was maybe something planned but not happening, and green meant that there was something that was sort of defined and definitely happening. As you can see on the right hand side, we kind of came to the conclusion that there's massive potential at pretty much all sizes in all regions, which is a good thing. So what we can sort of see from this and looking at the Faroes case study is, if you were to take it at the current, pretty much pick it as it were, it transfers to all the other MPA regions immediately as it is. If we were to scale it down to micro, it might work. And if we were to scale it up to a macro region again, it might, there's good potential that we'll be able to do that, and it would be a good idea to do so. The next thing we looked at then was evaluating the different technology types, and what we did was basically look at which renewable technologies were likely to be utilizable in each region. Again, it's the same sort of idea. Red means that it's very unlikely. Green means that it's probably already happening. So again, what that means is that the Faroes case study is using wind energy, which means that if we were to look at each of the different regions, we can say, well, yes, you could pretty much take this as is using wind to everywhere. We did have Iceland marked as red. Based on discussions yesterday, that's probably actually changed. In recent times, there seem to be some examples. So, the situation's always evolving, but at that point, perhaps it wouldn't have necessarily worked in Iceland. If we were to change the technology to solar, again, similarly, we've got, in various in Finland, Faroe Islands, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Scotland, there's a lot of solar power being used. So therefore, there's a good chance that this case study would work, or a similar kit would work in each of those regions. But then I'd look at hydro as just another example. Again, it's unlikely that, it would be less likely to be transferable if it was using a hydro technology at the outset. So that's kind of where we are on that side of things. Another bit that we've come up with, or another tool that we've developed, is a cash flow tool. So this tool is actually live on the website. I know that it's quite small there, but you can have a look. But basically, what it allows you to do is to input various different figures. You can put your initial investment, your energy costs, your water costs, any output you're getting. So if you're selling, for example, the oxygen from the Faroes case study, if it was to be sold, you can put in a value for that, and it gives you a bit of an idea. There's two kind of aspects to it. One is that it does give you a figure and suggest that if, with all the figures you've input, that it's going to take you approximately whatever amount of time, 10, 12, 15 years to get payback on your sort of project. But another key point is that it also flags up and makes you think about what it is you're doing. So, you know, you may be looking at costs, and it may flag up that maintenance costs was something you hadn't thought about. And one of the things that come up in discussion is maintenance costs tend to be much higher than maybe people realize. So by flagging that up, it just gives people a bit of a kicker in the right direction to think, yeah, okay, you know, again, this might work, but maybe we need to think about this a wee bit more. So again, what we've done then is, what we can then do with this tool is using the Faroes case study as a basis. What we've done here is we've kind of compressed it down to a micro study. We've removed a couple of the outputs. So we've removed if you remember, we had the oxygen production on it as well. So we've removed that, and by compressing it down, we've sort of adjusted the figures, and we've seen that it gives you a rough payback time. Now, it's a very rough guess at this because the figures are probably not exact, but it's just to give a rough idea. So it helps to say that if we looked at the Faroes and we thought, yeah, we can do that, but we maybe want to not quite be, you know, build it on a slightly smaller scale, this is what it would, you know, this is how it would help. Likewise, then we've got a second scenario where we use the same scale, so it's a meso scale, but we've taken a few of the products out, and again, well, that you know, we fed in the different things. So we've paid all the initial capital up front. We haven't taken any loans, and that kind of thing. We've based it on sort of a certain number of staff, and then it gives you a slightly different payback time, and helps you to maybe decide on what you want to do or what sort of size of project you want to build. And then just on the final one, this would be trying to scale it up to a macro scale. So for what might change here is, rather than having the ability to pay it all up front, you're going to have to take a loan. So you've got to take into account your annual loan repayments. You've got to take into account more, you know, higher levels of transport costs and things like that. And it basically just shows the difference between each one and how that would scale it up. So I think what we've kind of seen from our Faroes, or what we've seen from the Faroes case study, is it's a really good baseline. It's a really good project. And by using the different tools, we can get some ideas of how we can potentially use that as an example. And similarly, we have other case studies from other regions, and we'll be doing the same with those. And it means that if someone's coming along and they've got an idea, but they're maybe not quite sure, it gives them that, hopefully, incentive to maybe take it a little bit further and put in that's a high level idea, but maybe look into getting their finances or a proper financial appraisal. So thanks very much. That's the end of sort of where we are with that. And if anyone's any questions or anything, fire them on ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aaron. I'm not sure, are there any questions?
There's no questions on chat, but I have one.
You got one? Yeah.
Sorry. This is just on your last slide. Is there potential to add a social value to your cash flow analysis? And by social value, I mean a green credential value. Project X has higher green credential than Project Y.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, that's certainly something to think about. I think we have kind of looked at it purely from a capital point of view. We haven't maybe taken that kind of side of things into it. I'm sure something that we can look at doing in the future, yeah, and adding in and maybe adding a bit more value to what's there. Yeah. Certainly.
So there are some questions here that are very technical about fuel cells and engineering, but I don't know whether that's for this audience or whether we should go back directly.
I think maybe it's better to answer them in writing, perhaps.
Okay, yeah, so I'll put something on the chat to say we'll respond. Okay, thank you.
Time is
Yeah.
running. Okay. Thank you all for very good presentations, and this was actually the last presentation we had, and now I'm giving the word to Desislava, the project leader, and she will wrap up this webinar.
Very quickly. Well, Thank you very much, everyone here in the room, everyone that are watching us, attending online remotely. We were supposed to have people in person here, but unfortunately last minute changes, so we couldn't have Faroese stakeholders in here. But hopefully in the future we'll be able to. We hope that they've managed to catch our webinar, but it's not a problem because everything will be uploaded on our website and we'll send across information soon. Thanks very much for the speakers. Thank you, everyone. It was very interesting to hear everything that's happening around here and your insights. Jon, thank you very much for joining us online, for keeping up with us. And thanks very much to the technician team, and everything has been done well with it, and thanks to the team. And I need to just let you know that we do have a collaboration which is called the HTA Forum, which is with 2 other Interact projects, and we will share information about that, and you're welcome to join our forum. Please follow us, and we'll continue our webinar series until the end of the project. It was very nice to be here. Thanks to the University of the Faroe Islands for having us. And we are now going to go see the electric boat. So that's a wrap from us.